Good morning and welcome to Observations. My name is Archie Goodbee, and you've seen me here before. It's been a while, and we came back today to talk to you about some issues other than the ordinary issues you see in the newspaper every day, the socioeconomic, historical perspective on what's happening to minorities in this community. We're still going to take a slant on a historical perspective, but we're doing it with a guest I'm sure you'll enjoy meeting. His name is David C. Driskell. He's Chairman, Department of Art at the University of Maryland, College Park. David has a panorama of gifted people working with him, and he himself has been recognized as one of the foremost colorists, painters, and lecturers about Afro-American art as it exists in the world today, and of course, he can speak from a historical perspective. So without much further ado, let me introduce you to our guest for this morning, Mr. David C. Driskell. David, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm happy you could join us, and I guess the first question that crosses the audience's mind is, why would someone of your fame, acclaim, be here in Albany?
Well, first of all, because of the kind invitation from your station to do this program, but mainly because I'm a resident, a guest at Yaddo in Saratoga Springs, New York.
A quick comment, Yaddo is a place 33 miles from Albany, and I've been in Albany for more than 25 years. It's a place I'd never heard of. It is itself an artist retreat, and once you see it, and you will see it here today, you'll understand the freedom and the isolation that the members of fine arts departments from continent to continent crave for to bring out their creative talents. The people in Yaddo consist of artists, painters, composers, etc. So without any further ado, we're going to take a look at Yaddo, and we're going to let David explain to you, since he's a resident there, what's going on.
Well, as we enter Yaddo, you see, first of all, the entranceway leading to a very, what we call rather palatial estate. And you see the guest house entrance, the office, and the area that is used for maintenance of the spacious grounds. And we're entering now the area that we refer to as the mansion. And this is where many of the guests live. The mansion, of course, is a 19th century Victorian house that was built by Mr. and Mrs. Spencer Trask. And upon their death, it was decided that it would be used as a residence for painters, poets, sculptors, musicians, composers, that is, and artists in general. And it's a beautiful area. You see the East House here, where some of the residents work and live, and the studios where these artists work. These are the visual artist studios.
David, I read in a local newspaper, December issue, toward latter December, that this retreat houses about 30 artists in the peak of its season, which would be the summer. Mm-hmm. But it's open year-round, and certainly artists are invited there. Is that how you became a resident?
Yes, one must submit work to a board, which of course goes over the work that is submitted, and they decide on whether or not the work that you're submitting merits your coming there as a resident artist, and it is obviously a very strong competition.
I think we find ourselves now in Mr. Driskell's studio. We're going to catch him working on what he referred to as a collage. I didn't know. I called a painting a painting.
Yes. Well, yes, this collage, of course, is made up of torn pieces of paper and materials that I placed on the surface with a lot of color to give a particular rendering. And I'm working on a composition which isn't necessarily recognizable image-wise, but one which, of course, plays around with color and form. And this is a great deal of what I've been doing there, playing with color and enjoying the kinds of things that I don't normally get a chance to do in my own studio back in Washington.
As a light side, I think it was at this point I tried to convince Mr. Driskell, that I should finish the painting and thereby reap some of the benefits, the financial rewards, since I felt I'd taken a part in it.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd better finish it since I got started with it. But you also see some of the other things there on the wall and the method of my displaying the works to try and keep myself abreast of all the things that I've been doing.
Actually, what I'm doing is asking David questions about this collage, and even while David is talking to me now, you can still almost see the intensity that he gives to his work. Is it a... It's true that artists do like to work in isolation, and do you enjoy being at Yaddo, away from your family, and
well,
being able to work the way you want to at all hours?
Yes, that's one of the important things about Yaddo. You don't have any interference. It's an interesting place, and the tradition has been carried on throughout the years, specifically with the present director, Mr. Harnick, Mr. Curtis Harnick. He's very much concerned about people having their privacy, and this is one of the things that we cherish and one of the things that we've all enjoyed this summer, being all but isolated to a certain extent, to work at any time that we want to at our own pace without any interference. And this is, of course, one of the important things that we cherish about the place.
Obviously, this freedom and isolation is, I would think, the key reason why many area residents don't know about Yaddo. And when it came to my knowledge, it all happened within a 30-day period. I heard talk about Yaddo or read something about it all within a 30-day period. Artists must keep up and inject themselves into current events or historical events. And we're shortly going to get an opportunity to take a look at Mr. Driskell's painting of the eruption of Mount St. Helens. What made you think you wanted to do a painting like that?
Well, this is the painting, and it doesn't really show too much as far as the visual imagery of Mount St. Helens, but it was a thing that was in my mind, and I thought, well, this catastrophe, this natural occurrence, this thing that man can do nothing about, is something which has staggered our imagination. And so I wanted to try and capture some of that in a spiritual form, not a physical form.
Keeping in tune with the isolation, and obviously many, many thanks to the director, Curtis Harnack, who's been there a decade himself and is himself a prolific novelist.
Yes.
David is about ready to put me out.
Yes, we obviously reserve the right to keep our privacy there.
Let me say thank you. I certainly hope our audience enjoyed a little bit of Yaddo.
I hope so.
Mr. Driskell, on a show like this, when we usually deal with issues affecting minorities and civil rights, disadvantaged, handicapped, some of the audience obviously would think it's far-fetched for them to be thinking about art history, and culture when they have to deal with next week's paycheck and trying to keep, as they say, the man off their back and live from day to day. Mm-hmm. Does art have an important part to play in their roles, or how do you explain art to a larger segment of the population that obviously will not have the time or the funds to think about purchasing a painting?
Yes. Well, art has an important role to play in everybody's life. They may not know it in the sense of the academic tradition. They may not have gone to college, or they may not go to the museums or what have you. But the mere fact that we live in homes, we have furniture in our homes, we have dishes on our tables, we drive automobiles, all of these things were designed and in many cases made by artists of varying degrees. And so when we talk about economics, when we talk about politics, when we talk about social situation, we're talking about a design within society. And the artist is always at the core of design in society. He or she would be the person who helps to set up that concept of what design is to be. And in order for us to have a better life, regardless to whether we're talking about racial problems, we're talking about socioeconomic problems, or cultural problems in general, we must eventually go back to lifestyling. And the artist dedicates his life to enhancing the quality of life in his community, and that's what art is about in general.
When you say enhancing, now I've seen morbid paintings. I've seen paintings of yours that one could use to scare the life out of someone looking at it. When you say enhance, does this include landscaping, portrait, impressionistic?
Yes, this includes everything, and it's I should not use that in the literal sense of the word, but encompassing in the broad sense, to say that it brings to the attention of the public. It gives you a new thought, a new vision, a new idea. And here again, without being so cliche-ish, that's what the artist is about, giving a new vision, giving us that which we would not have without his or her presence. And so, to a great extent, art remains essential in the sense of whatever this vision is, or whatever it is interpreted to be, it is the artist who gives it in writing, or gives it in sound, or gives it in the motive aspects of dance, or through color and form, or through the aspiring words of the poet.
It makes a great deal of sense.
And that's, to me, that's a form of enhancement.
Writers write, painters paint. When you decide that you are about ready to sit down to work, is it usually by request? Is it something, an idea that's been burning and you want to release it? Or is it because of some socioeconomic situation that may cause you, or is it a factor of many things?
It's many things, and you don't normally think about anything in isolation. When it comes to subject, yes, you might isolate a subject, but a subject may not always tell the story of the work. The subject may be there for many reasons, but it's a culminating experience. It's many things coming to bear upon a final statement. That's what the work of art is. It's, you draw from your childhood, you draw from the middle period of your life, you draw from where you are presently, and you put projections into it. In many ways, you think about the utopia, what life ought to be, and in some cases you try and incorporate that into your work. I don't always see the colors that I put in my work, but there is this hope, there is this dream, this vision that color is like this, and so I very often invent this.
Let's explore two other manifestations about the artist or people involved and endowed with talent. Some artists make a lot of money. Other people think that artists and writers starve for a very, very long time before they're discovered. You obviously are doing very well.
Well,
how was it initially?
Well, I was a student like everybody else, and I ate from hand to mouth. I drove taxi cabs. I worked in between. I went to college when evening classes at times, and I did all the things that any other laborer does in order to get what he or she wishes. And it was only after I became a professional, in the sense of having been through the academic process and taught for a while, that I was able to do some of the things, to have the luxuries, and I don't mean the riches, I mean luxury in the sense of being able to paint on a Saturday or to paint on Sunday. I couldn't always do that. I had to go out and work, but now I'm able to do that. So it's, here again, it's a combination of many things.
Well, I guess before I ask you the second question, we ought to at least give our sponsors and people who enjoy taking a break. And we'll be right back. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at some of Mr. Driskell's paintings and some of those aspects that have helped make him one of America's greatest. We'll be right back.